Are long and complicated journeys always an exhausting ordeal for you? And does flying on holiday actually mean a lot of stress for you instead of just relaxation? Then I have 10 tips for you to make traveling less overwhelming and more comfortable as a highly sensitive person. So let's get started right away with these 10 tips. The idea for the following checklist I have today as well from the book again, Hochsensible in der Partnerschaft from Brigitte Küster, former Brigitte Shore. And you can also find this book as always in the description of the episode. Tip number 1. Planning the trip is always exhausting and therefore take as much time in advance as necessary. Preferably even several months for planning are appropriate. For further trips, it's not only just cheaper to book at least like half a year or a year in advance, but also way more relaxed. Tip number 2. If you really rarely travel by airplane, get an overview of the airport before the actual flight if possible. You could also call this the final rehearsal. So then you can check in advance where the check-ins, where the security checkpoints, where the restrooms, and where is the backdrop. Believe me, you will feel safer and there will be less stress when you arrive at the airport. Tip number 3, this is from my own experience, work with a checklist. From my experience, a list has always given me a lot of peace in my mind when traveling. For one, you should be able to check off all your documents on the entry of the list, but also your passport or vaccination card if needed. Is also a good way to plan what you put in your suitcase. Do you need care products? What about the hairdryer or the camera charger? Put everything on a clear list and that way you won't forget anything, but also you keep control to not overpack your bag. Tip number 4, be at the airport 2.5 hours before departure. Why 2.5? Well, actually, you should be there at least 2 hours before your flight. That's the average rule. But the extra half an hour gives you a little extra buffer. And especially as a highly sensitive person, that's very favorable. In this extra time, you can get your bearings or you can breathe a sigh of relief if the line at the baggage claim is actually longer than expected. In the worst case, you sit longer before boarding and read a book. Tip number 5, take something to eat with you. Do you remember that you often get hangry when you don't get anything to eat? Because that's me. Then definitely make sure your body doesn't get low blood sugar when you're in a stressful situation at the airport. Tip number 6, you travel with your partner, your children or friends. Everyone will expect something different from the trip. That's for sure. What I always do by now is I talk about the expectations, desires, and ideas of the upcoming trip with the people I go with on the trip. Just roughly, how much time will I spend doing what? What do I want? What would I definitely like to experience or see on the trip? What does the others definitely want to see or experience on the trip? Number 7, on arrival, first thing, settling in. Perhaps you know this as well. Especially foreign environments can seem threatening at first. This can sometimes even cause panic in some highly sensitive people because they do not feel longer in control of the situation. Therefore, take your time to get used to the vacation location, especially when you know that you tend to experience panicky feelings on such trips. Experience shows that settling in may need 1 to 2, maybe 3 days. Number 8, having vacation does not mean living in a parallel world. Life is subjected by natural fluctuations here as well. Keep that in mind. Just because everyday life is different here does not mean that you cannot have a bad day once in a while. Besides, the alternation between activity and rest is really relevant here. You're on vacation, so definitely schedule your rest breaks for yourself. Number 9, dedicate yourself to the sensations of your body, especially when you're on vacation. Often we are full of expectations and excitement when we go to a foreign country. That's great, but your expectations don't always match your specific needs. So really important, don't force yourself to experience something on the trip just because you think you have to experience something now. Stick to your needs. Rather use the time, especially on holiday, to get closer to your needs and to take a break if you feel tired. And last but not least, travel light. Not only in terms of luggage weight, but also mentally. Less is sometimes more. So do you really need 12 different outfits for 10 days? That alone can make you think twice. So keep it simple so your central nervous system can relax. So I'm curious, is traveling also a torture for you, or do you make it look easy? Definitely let me know in the comments below the episode. And if you haven't checked the book list before, also check it out in the description. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen, and I see and speak to you in the next episode.